Hi, I'm Joe from Pixel Pix. We need to talk about a game that is currently confusing the absolute hell out of the internet. Usually when we see a massive, gorgeous open-world game coming out of China, two things happen. First, everyone screams Ghost of Tsushima clone. And second, everyone gets worried it's just another cash grab mobile game disguised with pretty graphics. But then I actually looked at where wins meet, and I realized we were asking the completely wrong questions. This isn't just an action game. It is quite possibly the most insanely ambitious, overcrowded, and weirdly specific project I have ever seen. It's trying to be Elden Ring, Assassin's Creed, and a historical life simulator all at the same time. The developers at Everstone Studio haven't just built a world. They've built a sandbox that lets you do everything from slaying gods to, and I'm serious here, arguing with NPCs using an AI chatbot. But is a game that tries to do everything actually good at anything? When you first boot this up, you are going to be overwhelmed. That is by design. The game throws you into the Ten Kingdoms era of Chinese history, and immediately it feels like a AAA PlayStation exclusive. You have cinematic horseback rides, explosions, and a massive boss battle within the first 20 minutes. It lures you in with this narrative focus, making you think you're in for a tight, story-driven adventure. But that wasn't the whole story. The moment the tutorial rails come off, the game reveals its true nature. It is a chaotic monster of mechanics. You can play this as a solo offline RPG, essentially ignoring the rest of the world. Or you can flip a switch and turn it into a pseudo-MMO where you're raiding dungeons with friends and engaging in PvP. It is trying to capture the Genshin Impact crowd and the hardcore Dark Souls crowd simultaneously. And while that sounds like a recipe for disaster, the sheer scale of the world they've built is undeniable. You are looking at potentially 150 hours of content just in the base exploration alone. But the question is, does that quantity actually equal quality? Before we get to the combat, we have to talk about how you move through this world, because this is where the game actually lands a solid hit. If you've ever watched Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or any classic wuxia film, you know the vibe. Gravity is more of a suggestion than a rule. Most open-world games lock you to the ground with a stamina bar. Where Winds Meet wants you to feel like a martial arts deity. You aren't just climbing walls, you are running straight up them. You can sprint across the surface of rivers, dash through tree canopies, and utilize a grappling hook that feels incredibly fluid. Visually, this is the game's strongest asset. When the sunlight hits the bamboo forests just right, or you're sprinting across a lake at sunset, it looks better than 90% of the games released this year. It sells the fantasy of being an ancient warrior perfectly. However, looking cool while moving is easy. The real test is what happens when you actually have to draw your sword. The combat is where things start to get a little polarizing. It uses a system that will feel familiar if you've played Sekiro or Sifu. It's all about parrying, breaking posture, and using martial arts abilities. You have different weapon styles from spears to straight swords, and you can mix and match abilities. Tai Chi blasts, AoE slams, you name it. On paper, it sounds incredible. In practice, it's a bit squishy. The parry timing can feel inconsistent, and sometimes your inputs just get eaten by the game engine. But the combat isn't even the strangest part of the gameplay loop. The game is packed with these bizarre, hidden interactions that you would never expect in a serious action RPG. Let me give you a prime example that shocked me. I was walking down a road and found a sick goose, just a regular goose. The game gave me a prompt to heal it. I thought, okay, easy XP. I clicked the button, and suddenly the game launched me into a full-blown, turn-based card battling minigame to treat the bird's illness. I was so confused that I lost the card game, and because I failed to heal the goose, the bird transformed into a massive, overpowered demon boss and killed me instantly. This is the energy Where Winds Meet brings to the table. It is unpredictable, weird, and constantly trying to surprise you. And the surprises don't stop at demon poultry. Most RPGs force you to be the chosen one who kills everything in sight. This game asks, what if you wanted a day job? They have implemented a role system that is surprisingly deep. If you get tired of fighting, you can become an architect and build structures in the world. You can become an orator and use speech skills to influence NPCs. You can even become a doctor. And these aren't just titles. They come with their own gameplay loops and mechanics. It's this level of freedom that separates it from being just another Assassin's Creed clone. It wants to be a simulation of a life in that era, not just a murder simulator. However, there is a dark side to all this ambition. When you cram this many systems, building, debating, fighting, card games, Into one package, something has to give, and in this case, what gives is the polish. We need to be brutally honest here. Where wins meet is often a beautiful mess. Because the developers at Everstone put so much money into the scale, the fine details are all over the place. You will see NPCs whose mouths don't move when they talk. You will encounter cutscenes where the audio desyncs or plays over other characters. The translation can be rough, making the story difficult to follow. And speaking of the story, it barely registers. It's filled with generic melodrama that feels like it's just there to move you from one biome to the next. There's also a feeling of soullessness that creeps in after a while. You know that feeling when you play a Ubisoft game and you see a map covered in 500 icons and you realize none of them really matter? This game suffers from that. You are constantly bombarded with loot, currencies, and upgrade materials to the point where opening a treasure chest stops feeling exciting and starts feeling like a chore. It's a classic case of wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle in certain areas. Finally, we have to address the elephant in the room. NetEase. This is a free-to-play game mostly, and that comes with baggage. The character creator is incredible. You can make some truly distinct warriors, but a huge chunk of the cool cosmetics are locked behind paywalls or gacha mechanics. To their credit, the game seems to separate the pay-for-looks stuff from the stats stuff fairly well so far. Your actual gear stats come from equipment that doesn't change your visual appearance, while your skin is just cosmetic. But we all know how these games evolve. The grind is already starting to show its teeth in the mid-game. It demands your time, and if you aren't willing to sink 40 hours a week into it, you might find yourself falling behind the power curve, especially if you plan on engaging in the PvP or high-level raids. So where does that leave us with where wins meet? It is wildly better than I expected, but mostly because I expected a mobile port. Instead, I got a game that feels like a fever dream designed by a committee of mad scientists. It is visually breathtaking, mechanically dense, and completely lacking in restraint. If you are the type of player who loves Wukong or Ghost of Tsushima for the tight, polished combat, this might annoy you with its jankiness. But if you are someone who loves the chaos of an MMO, who wants to get lost in a massive world, build a house, fight a demon goose, and look good doing it, this is absolutely worth the download. Just don't expect it to respect your time. I'm Joe from Pixel Pix. If you're going to dive into the 10 Kingdoms, let me know in the comments. Are you playing this solo, or are you dragging friends into the chaos? Make sure to hit that like button if this script helped you make sense of the madness, and subscribe for more honest reviews. I'll see you in the next one.